Welcome to the Encore Audio Archives YouTube channel. I'm Taper Dave, and this is my channel. I've uploaded hundreds of talks here that I've recorded at meetings in West LA, and I've also recorded conventions starting in 2013. I've got a bunch of those up. And Walt and Mary Murray, the original owners of Encore Audio Archives, started the company in the 80s, and Walt recorded Joe and Charlie's and a bunch of stuff down in Vista, California. My sobriety date is June 20th of 1994. I hope you find something you like, so please like and subscribe to my channel and comment down below. If you want to hear something that I don't have or that you don't see, I'll see that I get it. Anyways, take care and have a great day if you want to.
Oh my God. My name is Tony, I'm an alcoholic. There's another meeting out there. What a crazy bunch we all are. Well, I'll start with the format. What happened, what was like, what happened, whatever it is. What is that? Anyway, I'm an alcoholic. I got sober in December 1975 in Los Angeles, the Pacific Palisades group. So I've been sober 22 and a half years. And I'll say anything to get a round of applause. Okay, can you hear me now? Can you hear me? Okay, that's the best I can do. So, no, leave it, it's fine. No, it's fine. Don't screw it up now. But it's just doing fine. Stay there. Can you hear me? That's okay. Anyway, as I was saying, I got sober 22 and a half years ago. 22 years, over 22 years. And I drank for 15 years, which is no big feat for an alcoholic. I've heard stories when people drank for 40 years, but I drank for 15, and that was enough for me. To the newcomers here tonight, I don't know if there's anyone in their first few days or first day or whatever, first few months. If you're confused, now it'll get even more confusing, because we're very confused people. But I was confused when I came in, but I was so shocked by what had happened to me because I sobered up immediately. I phoned Alcoholics Anonymous, and I got sober instantly, not because I was smart or clever. If I'd been any clever, well, I wasn't very clever anyway, but I'm glad I wasn't too clever for this program. I was born in South Wales, which is a very good reason to be an alcoholic. I am Welsh. We're related to the Irish, and so I suffer from the Celtic illness, which is alcoholism. And I had no idea that I was an alcoholic from the age of, I think I was born an alcoholic. If to the newcomer that's confusing, it's possible to be born an alcoholic. I think I was one, because I had all the feelings of being on the outside. And at the age of 4, when I went to school, my first day at school, I remember it very clearly. I knew I was on the wrong planet and that I didn't belong anywhere. And maybe I was dyslexic or something like that in school, because I just couldn't understand anything anyone was talking about. Or maybe I was just stupid. But I couldn't fit in anywhere, and I never could keep up with the rest of the school kids in education or in athletics or in sport. As I got older, I couldn't do anything, and I still can't. And now I don't care. Now I don't give a damn. It's interesting I can say that, because when I got into Alcoholics, then I'll go all over the place a bit, because I don't go on the boring drunkalog. I drank for 15 years, as I said, and it was pretty miserable. But when I got into AA, when I came into AA, my first day after I was sober, I went and had lunch with 2 men. They both became my sponsors, not at the same time, but they took me out and talked to me. And I said, I felt inadequate all my life, and I feel crazy. And they said, you are, and you are inadequate. And I said, I am. They said, yeah, and that's a very good, comforting place to be in, to know that you're inadequate. And for the first time, something clicked. And it was as simple as that. I thought, I am inadequate. And I don't need to drink because I haven't read Proust or Jean-Paul Sartre, or I don't know about the history of the Roman Empire. But I used to drink because of those things, because I always thought I was stupid. To flash back to my early years, I was probably dyslexic or something like that, or suffering from this ADD, whatever the hell that means. I think I was just dumb or slow, and I used to stand on the corner of the street on my own for most of my life, while all the other kids were on the other end of the street, and staring at my thumbnails. That's all I used to do for hours and hours. My father used to come home from work. He was a baker, and he'd come home and he'd say to my mother, "Where is he?" She said, "He's at the end of the street," and he'd watch me, and there I'd be. So I lived in the dream world, and I was the only child, and my parents were very worried about me, my father particularly. He used to say to my mother, and in my hearing, God rest his soul, he didn't mean any harm by this, but it didn't enhance me with any self-confidence. He would say to my mother, "There's something very wrong with this boy." And they would use words like, "He's hopeless." People would say, "What's he like in school?" "He's hopeless." And I was a constant source of worry to them, especially my father. My father, I think, was an alcoholic. I can actually say that he's an alcoholic. He's dead now, but we're supposed to be polite and say, well, we don't know, but he was an alcoholic. I'm sure he was. He was a periodic alcoholic. When he drank, he went through the personality changes. He was a man who was driven by tremendous energy, and I think his energy killed him. He had a heart attack, and God rest his soul, but I inherited everything from him, I think, and through his line of family. It doesn't matter. It's academic where the alcoholism is picked up from. I felt like an alcoholic at a very early age. And I'll try and skip through this biography. I don't want to be boring about it, but when I left school and I didn't know what to become. I didn't know what to do. I had no future. And by a series of miracles or bits of guidance or coincidence, whatever it was, I stumbled into the acting business. And I did it because I had nothing better to do. I thought it should be working for a living. And I thought, instant success, that's what I wanted. But however, it took a long time. And I became successful. And the more successful I became, the more aggressive and arrogant and afraid I'd become. And I had a sort of very quick launching pad into a successful career in England, in Britain. And I was working in some pretty fancy places like the National Theatre and places like that. And everyone around me drank. Most alcoholics, most actors in London are alcoholics. They seem to be, I think, well, a lot of them are anyway. And most of my friends were alcoholics. Some of them are dead, and some of them are unemployable, and one or two of them are sober. But I used to sit in those English pubs, as they know in England, pubs, bars, saloons, whatever you want to call them. And I would sit there and drink my heart's content. And I remember one day actually feeling at one with everything, because I was so incompetent at everything. I was so paranoid and so scared and so unsure of myself. And yet I had this colossal ego, this idea that I was terrific, and at the same time this strange idea that I was just useless and garbage, and that if only they knew really what I was like, they would disown me. But I remember sitting in this bar, having a couple of beers, and then going back to work, and I remember everything all fitting in like a piece of a jigsaw puzzle, like a well-oiled machine. And that lasted for about 2 days, and I remember being hungover. We were doing this rehearsal, and everything was like a well-oiled machine, and it was like a kind of Zen experience. And I thought, this is fantastic. This is what I've been looking for all my life. And I don't know why that particular day, it was 1971, and why that special day was so special, but it was, when everything clicked. I remember seeing a movie called Cat on the Roof with Paul Newman. I remember him saying, he said, there's a light that goes on, a light and a buzz, and everything just flows. And I remember that feeling. I thought, this is a fantastic feeling. And if this is what booze does, if this is what alcohol does, then I need more of it. And so I chased that elusive feeling for the rest of my drinking life. And I could never find it. And, I've learned since that what happens, we have a tiger by the tail, and this is a progressive illness. And if I took a drink now, I'd be 22 and a half years further down the chutes. And I would have no guarantees of where I would end up. I could end up in jail within a day or dead. I have no idea. So I don't want to chance my luck. I don't want to take chances and walk away from these meetings and pretend that I've got it made, because I haven't got it made. And that's the wonderful freedom. I haven't got it made. And one of the biggest freedoms is to know that alcoholism is a tough disease. And I've been around a long time, and I feel more relaxed than I have in a long, long time, because I've got nothing to prove and nothing to lose. What happened was in 1974, I came to America. Well, I'd been here about a year before. I came out to California, I think. Yeah, I can't remember. Yes, I came out to California and I discovered tequila. Oh, I love tequila. I used to drink just down the road here. But I couldn't wait to get, as I went back to England, and I couldn't, tequila wasn't a very fashionable drink in England, or I don't know if I could get it. But I knew I was coming back to America in '74, and I just couldn't wait to get back to America to drink tequila. I'd sort of put my career on hold, you know. I just wanted to get to those bars. And I landed in New York in 1974, in September '74, and I discovered the magic of the American bar. I was on 45th Street, and I was working in the theatre, the Plymouth Theatre. And I'd met a woman, her name was Mary, and she was a member of this program, and she never said a word to me, just smiled, that old AA smile. And somebody told me, they said, "You know that Mary's an alcoholic?" I said, "Really? That's terrible." I said, "But she doesn't drink." They said, "No, she doesn't. She's an Alcoholics Anonymous." I thought, oh my, poor woman. Maybe that's why she has to smoke so much. But Mary did one of these things. She was the principle of attraction rather than promotion. She never said a word to me, and she was a principle of attraction because she was Irish American, and she had this great sense of humor, and she used to laugh at all my dumb jokes, and I used to fool around on the stage and all that, and she'd laugh, and then she'd go back and tell her husband what was happening. She said, "He's falling down drunk tonight," and he said, "Let him fall, just let him go," because she was concerned and she wanted to help, but he said, "Stay out of his way, just stay out of his way, let him die if that's what he has to do. You know better than that from the traditions." And it worked, because 8 months later, I talked to Mary one day and I asked her about this. I said, "Could you help me?" And she said, "Yes, if you want help, I can help you." And we went out for lunch, and we'd been to a party the night before, and I was so smashed, I was frightened. And so we went out for lunch, and I said, "What is this thing about alcoholism?" She said, "Well, do you think you're an alcoholic?" I said, "No. I think I've got a problem, though, with alcohol." And she nodded very sagely. She didn't give anything away. I said, "But I don't think I'm an alcoholic." I knew that I was, really. And I said, "What is this AA stuff?" And she said, "Well, it's like you can stop at any time you want. If you think you're an alcoholic, you can stop at any point you want." She said, "It's like taking a subway from Park Avenue right down to the Bowery, or going from an elevator from the top floor to the basement and into hell. And you can get off at any floor you want." And she said, "The most important thing is if you don't take the first drink, you won't get drunk." Well, that was such an insult to a genius intelligent like this. I mean, she's not talking to a child. If you don't take the first drink, you won't get drunk. But she said, "Would you like to come to a meeting?" And I said, "No." Having asked her for help, and I said, "Is it religious?" And she said, "No, it's not religious." But I didn't want anything to do with meetings. I've always been a loner, and I always on my own, and I never wanted to join anything. This is the only thing I've ever joined in my life, is Alcoholics Anonymous. I never drank with people. I never stayed in clubs. I just drank on my own most of the time. And if I was with people, I would pass out very quickly, because I didn't want to be with people. I didn't like people. I didn't like the world at all. And I was very ambitious to succeed in my life, and so on and so forth. So anyway, what happened was I came out to, I did have a scare, and I said to Mary, "I'll stop drinking and I'll do it on my own." And I did for 6 weeks, and that seemed to be the magic number for me. 6 weeks was about as much as I could ever do, and I felt comfortable in those 6 weeks. And just on my last night in New York, the show I was in had ended, and I was leaving, and there was a party, and I thought, well, I've obviously not got a problem with alcohol. I mean, I haven't had a drink for 6 weeks, so what's the big deal? And I was drinking Coca-Cola or something, and I saw on the drinks table in this party some scotch, or tequila, I'm not sure. Poured that in. And I don't remember any more that night. And next day I flew out to California, and there was an apartment in Westwood and Wilshire Boulevard, and my wife and I were living there. And I stayed dry for another few days, and I started a movie, television thing, and I was down the road here, just down the road with this. And the person I was working with, she's dead. She died a few years ago. I don't know if she was an alcoholic. She drank heavily. She could drink me under the table. But I used to, down the road here, just on some location, and I used to drink tequila. And that tequila was just fantastic stuff because it unzipped my brain. It really opened my brain. And I started tripping out and I started hallucinating. And what was weird, because I was an atheist or an agnostic, I don't know what the definition is of either, but I was an atheist. I thought I was an agnostic. I thought I was far too clever to believe in God. And yet I was fascinated by religion. I was fascinated by the way people worshipped. And I couldn't understand what they were looking at or what they were praying to. But what was odd for me was that tequila was softening up my brain because I had quasi-religious experiences on Malibu Beach. I saw flashing lights and I saw holy lights, and I was hallucinating in a very strange way. I started hearing voices, and I would look at things and they would vibrate, and I was full of, I don't know what's in tequila. I guess there's it's almost related to LSD, I guess. I don't know. Maybe there's some experts here who can tell me. But it's an hallucinogenic, I've been told. And I had that stuff with the worm in it, and I ate that worm once, and I don't remember much after that, for about 3 days. And then in Christmas, my wife decided to leave me, Christmas 75, and she took off and she went back to England to let me die, or let me do what I had to do. She'd given up, really. She couldn't understand what the problem was. And people would say to me, you know, you're so successful. I mean, you're so good at what you do. Can't you cut down on the drinking? And I couldn't understand what they were talking about. How can you cut down on anything when you're having a good time? And my wife was one of those normal people. Her drinking habits are as weird to me today as mine must have been to her. She has 1 glass of wine every night at 6 o'clock and takes about an hour to drink it, and sometimes she doesn't finish the drink. And she actually spends time tasting it before she, chooses it in the restaurant. I've seen them with friends, these weird people, friends of mine. I don't know why they're friends of mine. I've seen them... yes. Half a bottle between 3 people. And I thought, well, these are weird people. A friend of mine, I know his name is David, and he's not an alcoholic, and he's one of the nicest guys you could ever know. He's a close friend of mine. And sometimes he takes 1 cigarette and he goes, why bother? And then, why bother? I said to my wife sometimes, I said, why do you bother? I said, what happens if you take 2? She said, well, I'll start getting dizzy. Well, that's the whole point. What's your problem? Drink it. I can tell you, I'm glad I'm an alcoholic. As I'm as alcoholic at this very moment as I was 22 years ago. I have a great time. I have a wonderful life. I laugh a lot. I am insatiable. I eat, devour things. If I can't smoke, when I used to smoke, I'd eat them. I couldn't get enough of anything. But what happened was my wife went back to England and Christmas 75, and I decided to hell with them all and to hell with everyone, and I was going to go down to New Mexico. I was looking for those magic mushrooms they talk about in Carlos Castaneda's. Though I'd never read Carlos Castaneda because I never had enough attention span to read him. I still haven't read him. I've heard a lot about him. I've got his books, but never. And I wanted to get those, that peyote or whatever the hell it was. And I ended up in Phoenix, Arizona. That's as far as I got. And I had this fantasy that I would become a country western singer. I've got the beard now. I wanted to become Kenny Rogers, or Tom T. Hall, or Waylon Jennings. I loved all that stuff. But I remember staying in this hotel in Phoenix, Arizona, and playing on this old-fashioned jukebox. They had Neil Sedaka. playing solitaire. And Tom T. Hall playing, singing old songs, Little Children and Watermelon Wine. That's a really great alcoholic song, that. And I remember playing it over and over in the bar until I drove everyone out of the bar. I was told not to play it anymore. And that was Christmas Eve, 1975, and I phoned my wife in England. There was 8 hours difference, or 7 hours difference, and I phoned her. I wished her a happy Christmas. She said, thank you. Where are you? I said, I'm in Phoenix, Arizona. She said, oh, good, have a good time. She put the phone down. And I realized at that moment, that was the turning point. I realized I'd thrown everything away. I'd lost everything. And everything I'd ever wanted, everything I'd ever cherished, everything I'd ever dreamed of, stability, peace of mind, I'd thrown it down the tubes. I'd been married before in a terrible marriage, which was a mess, and a little girl was produced out of that marriage. My first marriage was a total disaster. 50-50 to blame. No blame, we were both sick people. Well, I certainly was sick. I can't say anything about my first wife, but it was not good. And my second marriage promised to be good. It promised to be peaceful because my wife is very stable and calm and all that. But she left, she took off, and I remember that day driving back from Arizona, and I took about 2 days, I think. I stopped off in Palm Springs, and I was beginning to hallucinate. And my heart was beating, and I could see the shirt jumping, and all that. And my head was about to explode. And I got back to Los Angeles on the 27th of Saturday night, 27th of January 1975. And I went down to the Beverly Glen store on Santa Monica Boulevard. And I was really going to end it all, I thought. And I bought a bottle of tequila and some orange juice, and I was going to stir up. I didn't want to drink it neat. I wanted to give myself a bit of a taste before I pulled the plug. I wanted to die. I really did want to die. I hated myself so much, and I felt so lonely, and I just couldn't go on. And everything was killing me because I'd worked so well and I'd worked so hard in my life. And like all alcoholics, we work hard and we're clever or blessed or whatever the hell we are. We're bright people, but I'd worked so hard and I thought, why is it I can't beat this thing? What is it that's killing me? And there's a monkey in my back and I didn't know what it is. Why am I so uncomfortable? Why am I so ready to jump out of my skin? Why do I want to die? And I just wanted to die. I just wanted to sleep a long, long time. And I got back to my apartment in Westwood, and just on Wilshire, and sat there. And the evening shadows are getting longer, and those alcoholic blues were coming in on me. And I was playing the old fashions of vinyl records of Billie Holiday, and I thought, well, this is a great way to go out. And I didn't know how to do it. I just wanted to die. I just didn't want to come on anymore. I just didn't want it anymore. I was sick and tired of myself. The phone rang, and I was invited to a party, and I went to a party in Beverly Hills. And it's like I heard about an alcoholic woman in England. She was going to jump off the roof. And she used to rehearse jumping off the roof, but she would put sunblock on, so she when she was up there rehearsing her suicide. And then she suddenly realized the insanity of that. Anyway, I went to the party, so all thoughts of suicide vanished from me for the moment. But I went to this party, and I don't remember much about it. I was sitting under the piano with someone, which is not a place for a social drinker. And it was in Holmby Hills, actually, yeah. And I was told by somebody, it's time you went home. It was my agent, actually, who was there. And they took me out to the door, and I'd lost my car. And the crux of it was this: I'd lost my car. And I said, somebody's stolen my car. He said, no. He said, nobody stole it. He said, you left it in the middle of Wilshire Boulevard. And he said, with the engine running, and somebody saw you and got you out of it and drove you here. Don't you remember? I said, no. He said, you left it with the lights on and in the middle of Wilshire Boulevard. You don't remember? I said, no. I don't remember a thing. And I said, I know one thing, I'm an alcoholic and I need help. And I stood there on that doorstep looking up at the eucalyptus trees, and I thought, somebody up there likes me because I should be dead by now. And on Monday morning I phoned Alcoholics Anonymous to the central office in West Los Angeles, which was an old address on Westwood Boulevard. And I phoned them up, and I phoned up the number. And a woman answered the phone, and her name was Dorothy. She said, can I help you? This is Alcoholics Anonymous. Can I help you? I said, yeah, my name is Tony, and I think I've reached the end of my rope. She said, that's good. I said, I'm in bad shape. She said, that's good. And I said, well, I think I'm going crazy. She said, good. So I said, well, I need help. I said, well, shall we send someone around to see you? I said, no. I didn't want to take this too seriously, you know. And I thought I didn't want anyone with a Bible and a bottle of booze and charity coming around and smiling all over me. I didn't want love. I didn't want anything like that. I didn't trust anyone. I've been told, don't trust anyone. Get them before they can get you. I said, where are you located? She said, she gave me the address, and I drove my battered car after this journey from Arizona. I drove parked it down the street over the south end of those old railroad tracks they used to have there, and I walked. And as I was walking over those railroad tracks, I remember thinking, well, maybe I'm making too big a thing of this alcoholism. I'm an actor, and I've dramatized everything in my life. Maybe I'm exaggerating a bit. And another voice, still at the same time, like on the double track in my head, said, just get there. Do something for yourself. So I went into this office, and this woman saw me, and she was an elderly lady, and her name was Dorothy, and she talked, and I sat down, and it was the last thing I expected to see. I expected to see drunks holding on to each other, stopping each other shaking. I thought that AA was a place where you went and somebody would hold you down and say, okay, tomorrow night you can go and have a drink and we'll come with you. Then Friday I'll go out and drink and you come with me. I had no idea. I didn't know what I was coming in for. No, I'm glad I came here. And I could smell the coffee in this room, and the sun was pouring through the window, and there's some little ferns and flowers, and then this nice lady. And I said, so what do I do? She told me about alcoholism. She told me that her husband was an alcoholic, and he had saved his life. And she was not an alcoholic herself, but she was there to operate the phones and answer calls because she wanted to give something back to AA. Now, that was outside the traditions, I gather, so they asked her to leave, which I'm sad about, But that woman changed my life. She saved my life. I said, well, what do I do? She said, well, somebody will pick you up and take you to a meeting. Was that a real moth? Yeah. Oh. So, somebody will pick you up and take you to a meeting. And I thought, what meetings? I said, what are the meetings like? Are they religious? She said, no. And she's given you your address and your phone number, and we'll send somebody around and they'll phone you and so on and so forth. So as I stood up, she looked at me, she said, let me say something to you. And she gave it a sort of thought, and I knew she was going to zap me with something spiritual. And she said, why don't you just come home and rest? And I felt something give way inside my throat, like a barrier going down. And then she said, why didn't you just trust in God? And it's just what I wanted to hear. Because all my life I'd fought and I'd bitched and complained and intellectualized myself out of any concept of help. I was tough, I was alone, and I believed in being alone and standing up for yourself and having a strong back and saying, screw everyone. And when she said that, I thought, well, everything I've done has failed miserably. All my so-called self-knowledge, reading Power of Positive Thinking and reading this and that and cybernetics and all that stuff I read. It's good stuff if you're not an alcoholic, and I don't dismiss any of that stuff because I read all those books, and I think in a way it was my strange form of prayer that got me here. And I thought, well, and I remember hugging this woman. I never hugged anyone, and I walked down on the street and I thought, and as I walked down on Westwood Boulevard, an amazing thing happened to me. It was a very powerful voice or thought inside me. It was a voice. I can only describe it, and if you don't believe me, that's, well, so what? The voice said very clearly to me, it's all over, and now you can start living, and it's all been for a purpose. So don't forget 1 minute of it. And the craving to drink left me that second and has never come back. So I take it that on the evidence of that, something miraculous happened to me. And I think that the voice was the presence of a power, the very best part of myself, which is the kingdom within, or whatever you want to call it. I'm no theologian, but I believe in the presence of God within all of us, that in me is me as me, and so on. And I don't understand anything beyond that. That's my only concept I have of God or higher power. And I take it that that's what it was, because it was a miraculous force that relieved me and zapped me. So much so I called in on the priest on the way in Ohio Avenue, and I said, I found God. He said, congratulations. And I was taken to my first meeting. A man called George picked me up. George and Lila. And he was everything I thought he would be when he said, hi, my name's George, I'm an alcoholic. He put my hand. He smiled all over me. He had gleaming teeth and white hair, and I said, and we travelled over to the Pacific Palisades, and I went into that room. About, I know, a lot of people there, a lot of people, maybe 80, maybe 100 people. I know there was a lot of people, and they all looked. None of them looked like alcoholics, and I sat down between these two men, another man called Bob, who came over to me, said, "Hi, Tony." He said, "We worked together last year for one day on a publicity thing." I said, "What are you doing?" He said, "I'm an alcoholic." He said, "What are you doing here?" I said, "I'm an alcoholic." It's good. And then somehow the old guy, an actor, came over. He said, "Hi, Tony, we've been expecting you." So I sat, and the speaker that night was a man called Chuck Chamberlain, and he got up and he said, "My name is Chuck, I'm an alcoholic. By the grace of God, I'll have 30 years this January." And I thought, well, he's either suffering from brain damage or illusions. But I listened to everything he had to say. And he talked about, he said, "If anyone out there resents me, that's your problem, not mine." And I thought he's talking direct to me. And everything he said that night opened my brain, because I thought, this is what I've been looking for all my life. And I always knew I was lucky. I always knew I had a streak of luck. I got away with things in my life that I should never have deserved to get away with. I was an idiot at school, but I managed to get through all that. I got into a profession that I had no knowledge of, and I became successful at that. And I had no rights, no deserving in my life, as far as I thought then. And I seemed to be like a cat with 9 lives. I could always land on my feet. And just lucky. And I sat there that night between these two men, Bob and George, and Chuck was speaking. And I looked around, I thought, all my life I've been looking for people like this, because they have felt on the outside like me all my life, on the outside with my nose pressed to the window, trying to get in, trying to belong. And whenever anyone did invite me to belong, to hell with them. I back away. It's like, was it Groucho Marx said, who would want to belong to a club that I belong to, something like that. But I didn't trust anyone. And but that night I knew it was over. I knew that the wrap was up, and it was over. And next day it was explained to me, and I went to a lot of meetings, and Bob and George took me out, and they said, "You know, you have been crazy, and that's what alcoholism is, it's an insanity." And I said, "Yeah, I understand. Driving my car is insanity when I'm drunk. Everything's crazy when you're drunk. Everything is insane." And I was just told, don't analyze, just go to meetings. And the best thing I've ever heard was, leave all your best thinking outside, because it'll only kill you. Leave your thinking outside and sit down, come in, open your ears, shut your mouth, and listen. And I went to meetings and meetings and meetings, and there was an old guy called Jack Bailey. He's dead now, so I'm not breaking anonymity. Jack Bailey, he helped a lot of people. Maybe some people in this room knew. Everyone's so young. God, everyone looks like. But I remember Jack, he used to say, I used to race around the place, you know, like and coffee, and yeah, like tonight, this meeting. And Jack said, "Hey, where are you going?" And he'd been about 30 years sober, and he said to me, he said, "Are you enjoying yourself?" I said, "Yeah." Is that okay? He said, "Yeah, of course it is, you dummy." He said, "You happy?" I said, "Yeah." Is it okay to be happy? "Yeah, that's what you came here to be." He said, "Have some fun with this thing." He said, "Because this is the best thing in the world." And he said, "Don't take yourself seriously." And he said one thing, and he said, "Just keep it simple." He gave me that little note, KISS, keep it simple, stupid. And he used to phone me, and I'd phone him, and I'd say, "You know this thing about being insane, am I insane?" He said, "No, you're not insane. If you work the first 3 steps, you're not insane. You've been restored to sanity." He said, "You may have a little screw loose, and that's the alcoholic screw." He said, "We'll go crazy if you drink again. All you have to do is follow the simple directions. Go to meetings." He said, "Go to as many as will make you comfortable. Avoid the gurus, avoid crisis." And he said to me, he said, "All alcoholics are addicted to crisis, excitement, and drama." And I thought, oh God, that's terrific. He said, "Look at the meetings." He said, "You'll see them all there. The crisis freaks." He said, "Nice people." He said, "But you don't have to do that." He said, "You know, it'll take you some years just to calm down." He said, "But take it easy." He says, "Have some fun. And stay away from the Bible thumpers and the gurus." And he said, "You can have a great life." And he said, "Always laugh." He said, because, you know, the way to give God a good laugh is tell him your plans. And I used to see this old guy at meetings, and he'd say to me, you know, that's the way it is. And he said, there's nothing to it. He says, like falling off a log. He said, have some fun with this thing. He said, help out. He said, don't try to get good. Don't become a saint. And all those old timers helped me so much. And that's the one thing I hope I've been able to do, is keep it simple. Because I heard an amazing thing once. The Alcoholics Anonymous is a simple program for simple people who think they're complicated. And I've been with a couple of gurus, and I had a sponsor back in England, and it was like being in boot camp. And everything was analyzed, everything was scrutinized, and in the end I said, to hell with it. I just want to live a good life. So I keep it simple, sponsor a few people, and I hope I'm of help to some people. And I get very busy in my work, and sometimes I get too busy, and when I know that I'm too busy, I know I have to go to meetings, because I am only one drink away from death, or the most worthless kind of life. And so it's a very simple formula. There's nothing complicated about it. I try to read the big book as much as I can. Sometimes I'm very inconsistent in my life. I don't have much discipline. And I just realized recently, a few years ago anyway, just self-acceptance is the best part of one's life. I am an inconsistent person. I'm an alcoholic and I'm inconsistent. I can never really follow through on anything. Maybe I do have a short attention span. You know, I plan to read the big book or this or that, or I plan to go to the health club and yeah, tomorrow, and I never do. I stay in bed or something. Or everything changes. And somebody said to me once, they said, well, that's the way you are, so what? You know, you're not killing anyone, you're not hurting anyone. Do your own thing. Because I'm a workaholic, I think that's part of all our lives, and I've had to, and I will shut up soon, I've got to stop. But I recently broke an Achilles tendon in my left foot. I was doing some work, and it gave me a great opportunity to stop. I had an operation and I was put off work for 3 months, and I'm going back to work on Friday. And in that time, it's helped me to really take stock of things, because now it's given me time to rehearse being relaxed. To the point that when I get in the car, I'll only drive about 35 miles an hour, and I don't give a damn about the guy behind me. I refuse to get myself into a tense state by cutting up the freeway, because you can kill people. And I just want an easier life, and maybe I'm just getting older. But I don't take anything too seriously anymore, and I have no fears. And in my work, and that's another thing, but I have a great life, and I meet alcoholics. I was a woman I was recently working with, and I was working with her last year, and she was crazy, very, very bright, crazy. And she said, can I talk to you? And I said, yeah, sure. So we sat down. She said, I think I'm an alcoholic. I said, oh, well, okay. What do you want to do about it? She said, well, what do I do? I said, well, there's AA. That's a very good organization. You belong to that? I said, yeah. I met her on Wednesday morning. She's 6 months sober. She's having a baby, and she's happy, and she's a little confused. I said, well, just go to meetings, and she lives up in upstate with her husband in New York somewhere. But I didn't do anything. I just sat there and listened to her, and she said, can you help? I said, well, go to meetings, and that's all I can do is pass it on. I don't have to beat people's brains out with this. And one thing I would say, I don't have to defend AA. I don't fight about it. If anyone says to me, you still go to those meetings? I say, yeah. Why? I don't know. Isn't it boring? No. How does it work? I say, very well. So, are you all brainwashed? I say, yeah. Come and join me sometime. My brain needed washing. To the newcomer, this is the fantastic life of all fantastic lives. As Chuck Chamberlain said to me that night, he said, keep coming back, because we get it better than better. We get better than better. And I thought life was a rehearsal. And someone said, this is it, this is the show. Life is not a rehearsal, life is life. Thanks a lot.
Thank you, Tony.
Okay, this is how I prepare my drone for launching. I like to do it inside the cab of my truck so I'm not standing outside in the weather. To install the joysticks for control, up and down, right and left, powered on. I have an Android phone that I use to connect it to the drone with. And it's actually controlled through the iPhone, through an app. Oops, wrong way. It's actually controlled through the iPhone, or through this Android phone, through the app. It's actually controlled through the Android phone, through an app, and you connect it through this short connection right here.
Remote control connected.
Remote control's connected. So I pull out the drone. I have to extend the legs. Long legs extended first, then the short legs. Remove the gimbal protector. Set that aside, then power it on one short burst, then one long burst. I lay it down. So I have to go to calibrate. So the drone's not connected yet. Shows you here as this drone gets disconnected, even though the remote's powered on. So the drone has to establish it's connected. So I go into the app to calibration mode. First I'll calibrate the remote controller. Start calibration. Out, in, oop, out, in, up, down, and then this little wheel is to control the gimbal. So it's calibrated. Go to gimbal calibration, start calibration, and then it calibrates the gimbal. I don't know if that shows up. The gimbal's moving all over the place. Changes, you can see it on the video. And I'm calibrated to take off. It's acquired 7 satellites at the moment. There are 26 satellites up in the sky, which it has to acquire before you can take off. So it's connected. It's got enough satellites. This is white. I can go to press this little arrow button, swipe right to take off, and it would start the motors if I slid this to the right. But I'll wait till I get outside. Don't want to do it inside.